I used to think marriage takes work meant like mutual effort. Turns out, in my case, it meant a performance review every night and a checklist on the fridge. It started innocently enough. Thursday evening, I came home after work, tired, hungry, and already planning to lose an argument about the thermostat, but the house smelled like candles and lavender, which meant either she was in a good mood or she was about to stage one of those emotional TED Talks she calls relationship resets. "Hey babe," I said, hanging my jacket. "What's the occasion? Someone die, or did you finally forgive me for existing wrong?" She smiled, that kind of calm, managerial smile people wear before firing you. "Sit down," she said. "I have something exciting to share." Now, for reference, when my wife Sarah says exciting, it usually ends with me agreeing to something I don't understand. Like that one time we did a digital detox weekend, which was just 2 days of her scrolling her mindfulness app while I stared at a wall, trying not to die of enlightenment. Anyway, I sat. She had a neat stack of papers in front of her, printed, stapled, and highlighted. She slid them toward me like a lawyer presenting evidence. On the first page, the 20-rule marriage experiment. I blinked. "Is this a joke or a cry for help?" "It's neither," she said seriously. "It's a structured relationship reset. I've been reading about it in a couples therapy group. The idea is to rebuild connection through accountability." "Accountability?" I repeated. "Are we talking about love or tax audits?" She ignored me and flipped to page 1. "Rule number 1, you cannot ask where I am. I'll share when I'm ready." "Okay," I said, nodding slowly. "So if you vanish for 3 days, I'm just supposed to assume you joined a monastery?" "It's about trust, Tom." "Right. Blind trust. My favorite kind." She went on, unfazed. "Rule number 2, no sarcasm after 9 p.m. "Perfect. So at 8:59 I can still be funny, but at 9:01 I become a monk. Got it." "Rule 4, she continued. "No physical contact unless initiated by me." I raised a brow. "Wow, I've been demoted from husband to houseplant." She gave me that look, the one that says, "This is why we need therapy." "Tom," she said, "you need to take this seriously. We're rebuilding emotional intimacy." "Sure. By removing the emotional part and the intimacy part," she sighed. "You always make jokes when I'm being vulnerable. And you always hand me paperwork when I'm hungry." We went through the list like 2 diplomats at a peace treaty, except one of us was trying to end the war, and the other was inventing new borders. Rule 7, no emotional discussions after 9 p.m. "So if you start a fight at 8:58, I'm trapped until morning?" "It's not a fight if we're both emotionally regulated." "Sarah, I haven't been emotionally regulated since I got married." She frowned. "See? That's exactly the problem. You're dismissive." "No, I'm realistic. There's a difference. Realism is what keeps me from believing that spreadsheets fix love. I tried to lighten the mood." "Okay, let me guess. Rule 10 is I have to wear a shock collar if I forget your birthday?" She didn't even smile. She was dead serious. "Rule 12, she read. All compliments must be specific and emotionally grounded." I blinked. "So no more 'you look nice'?" "No, that's vague. You should say, 'I appreciate how the color of your blouse highlights your energy today.'" Jesus, I'm not flirting with a horoscope. Then came the one that nearly made me choke on my wine. "Rule 18, she said. Every night before bed, you'll write a short reflection about how you followed the rules that day." I stared at her. Like, homework? It's not homework. It's conscious journaling. Sarah, I'm 42. I barely survived high school essays. And now I have to write book reports about my tone? She gave a calm, teacherly nod. Yes, that's part of growth, great. So I'm basically in detention until love happens again. We sat there for a while, her proud, me confused. "Tom," she said softly, "I know this sounds structured, but structure is safety. You've been reactive, defensive, unpredictable." "Yeah, that's called human, babe. You married one, this will help us both regulate. We'll be closer, right? I muttered. Because nothing says intimacy like a behavioral experiment. She tapped the last page. Rule 20, she said. If either of us fails to comply with the experiment, we restart from day one. Wow, so marriage is a video game now. Don't mock this, she said, her voice firm. I'm serious, Tom. I need this. We need this. I looked at her. Really looked. The candlelight made her face glow, confident, almost peaceful, like she truly believed she'd solved us with a list. And something in me sank. Not because she wanted change, but because it felt like she wanted control more than closeness. Still, I smiled weakly. All right, I'll play along. Rule number 21, drink enough wine to survive the other 20. She didn't laugh. Later that night, she was in bed, typing something on her laptop. I leaned over her shoulder. Spreadsheet open, titled Emotional Compliance Tracker. Week 1. Are you grading me already? I asked. She didn't look up. Just documenting progress. Uh-huh. Should I sign somewhere? Tom, she said, not even blinking. Rule 3, no jokes when I'm working. I stared at her for a moment, then lay back on my pillow. You know, when people say marriage is hard work, I didn't think they meant excel. Next morning, there was a color-printed copy of the rules taped to the fridge. She'd even laminated it. Laminated, like a restaurant menu. Her sections were highlighted in gold, mine in gray. Rule number 4, no physical contact unless initiated by me. Rule number 9, no unsolicited advice. Rule number 14, respond with I understand instead of you're overreacting. I sipped my coffee, reading the list like it was a hostage note. Then I looked at her over the mug and said, Congratulations, Sarah. You've turned marriage into a corporate internship. She didn't reply, just smiled that calm, serene smile again. And that's when I realized this wasn't a phase, it was a system. One I'd just been promoted into without consent. The morning after she introduced the 20 rules, I woke up to find a laminated copy taped to the fridge. It looked like something you'd get in a corporate break room. Her rules were highlighted in gold, mine in gray, like I'd just been demoted in my own house. Next to it was a little sticky note. Let's make this fun. Day 1 starts now. Fun? Sure. That's what they call totalitarianism when it's scented with lavender candles. I made coffee, poured her a cup out of habit, and placed it on the counter. She walked in wearing her robe, looking peaceful, like a woman who'd achieved enlightenment through spreadsheets. Good morning, she said warmly. And then just as she reached for the cup, she stopped. Wait. Rule 9. I blinked. What about it? No unsolicited offers. You can't make me coffee unless I ask for it. Right, I said, lowering my voice. Of course. God forbid caffeine violates your autonomy. She tilted her head. You're mocking the process already. No, I said, sipping my own coffee. I'm worshipping it. See? Totally compliant. She wrote something down in her little notebook. That was the first time I saw it. The progress log. I should have burned it that day. By the third morning, I realized the experiment wasn't about fixing anything. It was about creating a hierarchy. She was the teacher. I was the student. Love was the curriculum. She started every day with what she called a communication check-in. Basically, it was an emotional pop quiz. How are you feeling today, Tom? She'd ask, notebook open. I don't know, I said once. Hungry? That's not a feeling, she said. Sure it is. I feel like eating breakfast. Be serious, she said, writing something. You're resisting emotional labeling. I'm resisting starvation. She didn't laugh. I missed when she used to laugh. It got weirdly robotic. If I said, you look nice today, she'd say, that's vague. Try again. So I'd try again. You look like someone who's about to grade my emotional report. She wrote something down. Was that sarcasm? Possibly. I'm still discovering my emotional truth. One afternoon, she was dragging a heavy laundry basket down the hallway. I instinctively stepped in to help. She froze mid-step. Tom, Rule 6. No assistance unless requested. Sarah, you're about to drop that. I said unless requested. All right, I said, stepping back. I'll just stand here and observe your empowerment. See, she said, smiling proudly. You're learning boundaries. Yeah, I muttered. You're about to learn gravity. The basket hit the floor, socks everywhere. She stared at them, then looked at me as if daring me to break the rule. I didn't move. I just raised my coffee cup like a salute to feminism and walked away. I heard her sigh. I think that was her version of an emotional hug. Evenings became the worst part. She made me write daily reflections. I'd sit there, pen in hand, trying not to gouge my eyes out. Just write about how you followed the rules, she said one night. So I wrote, Today, I didn't ask where you went, didn't touch you, didn't offer to help. I'm officially the most emotionally enlightened prisoner in America. She read it, unimpressed. You're not taking this seriously. I am, I said. I even used complete sentences. She stared at me. You're making a joke out of this. And you're making a syllabus out of marriage. I guess we both have coping mechanisms at work. People started noticing I was quieter. My coworker Mike leaned over one day and said, You good, man? You look like someone's holding your soul hostage. Yeah, I said. My wife made a list of 20 rules for our marriage. He blinked. Like chores? No, like emotional commandments. Thou shalt not touch, speak, or express opinions without written approval. He laughed. You're kidding. I wish. I'm basically living under emotional martial law another coworker Jenna overheard. Honestly, that sounds kind of healthy. Boundaries are important. Yeah, I said, except she's the border patrol. Mike laughed so hard he spilled his coffee. Man, if my girlfriend gave me 20 rules, I'd give her 20 reasons to stay single. Mine laminated hers, I said. Feels like she's running a franchise. They all laughed. But when I got home that night and saw the notebook sitting neatly on the counter, I didn't. A week in, she invited her best friend Emily over for wine. I didn't want to be there, but apparently social avoidance violated Rule 11. They sat at the table, drinking and chatting about how revolutionary the experiment was. Emily looked at me. So, Tom, how's it going? You two seem so grounded. Grounded, I repeated. Yeah, that's one word for it. I haven't spoken freely in 7 days, but my posture's never been better. They both laughed like I was joking. I wasn't. Emily said, Honestly, I wish my husband would do something like this. It's so mature. Yeah, I said. We're the picture of maturity. She writes the rules, I obey them, and together we've achieved peace through silence. Sarah smiled proudly. He's getting better at self-awareness. I poured more wine. I'm self-aware enough to know I'm in trouble. That night, after Emily left, Sarah turned to me. You embarrassed me. By telling the truth? By mocking the process in front of people. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't realize emotional compliance was a spectator sport. She sighed and went to her office. I could hear her typing furiously, probably updating my score. Around day 10, she caught me looking at her progress log. It had columns labeled tone, empathy, compliance, and responsiveness. Next to my name, there were notes. Still defensive. Needs to practice emotional presence. Shows signs of sarcasm relapse. I added one myself at the bottom. Shows signs of slowly losing will to live. She wasn't amused. Tom, this is important data. For who? The next guy? She crossed her arms. This isn't funny. I know, I said. That's why it's terrifying. By now, I'd stopped trying to change her mind. Instead, I studied her like she was studying me. She thought the rules were saving us, but I could see it. The control, the pride, the thrill of being the calm one while I floundered. She'd say things like, I'm proud of how compliant you've been. Compliant. That word stuck in my throat like dry bread. No one wants to hear that from the person they married. It's not love, it's ownership. So I started playing along more deliberately, but this time I wasn't cooperating. I was collecting evidence. The more she believed I was improving, the more she relaxed, and the more I saw the truth. The funniest part? She started posting about it online, photos of candles, books, and her hand resting on mine like a trophy. Day 12 of our marriage experiment. Learning so much about emotional balance, the comments were full of praise. You're such an inspiration. This is the kind of maturity I want in my relationship. Tom is so lucky. Yeah, lucky. Like a zoo animal with good lighting. I didn't say anything. I just scrolled, sipping my beer, and thought, if this is emotional growth, I'd rather stay stunted. That weekend, she introduced a bonus activity. Apparently, we needed to practice non-verbal attunement. In simple terms, sitting in silence and staring into each other's eyes for 5 minutes. She lit candles, played soft music, and said, "This will help us reconnect energetically." I nodded. Cool. Can I blink or is that too reactive? She ignored me. 2 minutes in, she started breathing slowly, eyes calm. I stared back, wondering how the hell I ended up here, doing budget couples yoga for the soul. When the timer finally beeped, she smiled. That was nice, wasn't it? Yeah, I said. Really captured the emotional intimacy of two people waiting for an Uber. Eventually, something in me just flipped. I stopped reacting, stopped arguing. She thought I was getting better. Really, I was just running out of care to give. One night she looked at me and said, "You're so calm lately." "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's what happens when you stop existing emotionally." She smiled. "Exactly. You're finally learning to regulate right," I said. "I'm basically Zen roadkill." She wrote something in her notebook, probably gave me an A. Then came the message that sealed it. I was at work when my phone buzzed. "Tomorrow we'll have our final evaluation dinner. Dress nicely, no sarcasm." Final evaluation. I stared at that phrase for a while, like this was the season finale of our suffering. That night, I sat at my desk with my reflection journal open. For the first time, I didn't write about her rules. I wrote my own. I'm not an experiment. Love doesn't need performance reviews. Respect isn't conditional. You don't fix control with more control. I'm done being studied. I folded the page carefully and slid it into my jacket pocket. Tomorrow she'd get her evaluation, but so would I. I came home early that day. The air felt strange, too calm, too prepared, like the moments before a storm you already know will hit. The table was set, candles, wine glasses, her favorite linen napkins. The house smelled like rosemary and control. I wore a black shirt. I figured if I was attending my own execution, I might as well look good for the crime scene photos. She came downstairs wearing a soft beige dress, hair tied back in that I'm emotionally superior bun she always did for serious conversations. Her expression was peaceful, the kind of peace people get from being absolutely sure they're right. "Wow," I said. "Didn't realize tonight was the Oscars for emotional growth." She smiled politely. "Let's try to keep things mature, okay?" "Sure," I said. Wouldn't want to get a deduction for sarcasm. She ignored it. Of course she did. We sat across from each other. She'd even printed new sheets, charts, bullet points, little checkboxes labeled trust, patience, compliance. I half expected her to pull out a laser pointer. "Before we eat," she began, "I'd like to read my summary notes." "By all means," I said, pouring myself wine. "Let's start the performance review." She didn't catch the tone. She rarely did. She opened her folder like a school principal. "During this 30-day experiment, I've noticed significant improvements in communication. You've been calmer, more responsive, less reactive." "Sedated," I murmured. She looked up. "What?" I said regulated. "Same thing, really." She continued reading, flipping a page. But there's still work to do. You tend to rely on humor instead of vulnerability. Maybe because vulnerability's been banned under rule number 7, I said. She frowned. Tom, see, this is exactly what I mean. Deflecting through jokes. Right. Would you prefer interpretive dance? Her face hardened. If you can't take this seriously, then you're not ready for real intimacy. Sarah, I said calmly, you turned intimacy into homework. I've been trying to pass your test for a month. She tilted her head slightly, the therapist gesture she'd perfected. I never asked for perfection. Just effort. Right, I said. 20 rules, 3 logs, and 1 laminated fridge chart. Just casual effort. She exhaled, clearly trying to stay in her calm therapist voice. Look, she said, I know this process was challenging for you, but I think we made progress. You're less argumentative. You're more observant. I smiled faintly. That's because I stopped talking. Exactly, she said brightly, missing the point entirely. I leaned back. Out of curiosity, do I get a grade? She nodded seriously. I actually made one. Of course she did. She pulled a paper from the folder. I'd say you scored 16 out of 20. Not perfect, but promising. I stared at her. 16 out of 20? She smiled. You should be proud. Yeah, I said. That's what every man dreams of, passing his marriage with a B-. We ate in silence for a while. The candles flickered between us. She looked satisfied, like she'd just completed a successful therapy session. I watched her, studying the woman who once laughed at my bad jokes and now treated me like a self-help project. Then I reached into my jacket pocket. I actually brought something too, I said. Her eyes lit up. Really? A reflection? Something like that. I unfolded the paper carefully and placed it on the table beside her charts. She leaned forward, curious. What is it? My rules, I said simply. She blinked. Excuse me? My 5 rules, I repeated. For what's left of us. I took a slow breath, then read them aloud. Rule number 1, I'm not an experiment. Rule number 2, love doesn't need performance reviews. Rule number 3, respect isn't conditional. Rule number 4, you don't fix control with more control. Rule number 5, I'm done being studied. The room went still. She froze, lips slightly parted, like a teacher hearing the class rebel quote the syllabus back at her. After a few seconds, she laughed nervously. Okay, very funny. It's not a joke. Tom, come on, don't make this dramatic. I'm not. I'm making it honest. Her expression changed. The calm cracked just a little. You're overreacting. Am I? I said. You made 20 rules about how I could speak, touch, and even breathe near you. You turned our marriage into a behavioral lab, and the moment I hold up a mirror, you call it drama? She looked down at the paper, then back at me. This isn't fair. No, I said quietly. It's accurate. She pushed the wine glass aside. You don't understand what I was trying to do. Sure I do, I said. You were trying to control chaos. Problem is, I am chaos. That's what makes me human. She opened her mouth to reply, but I kept going. You say it's about safety. But safe love isn't real love, it's management. You don't want a husband, you want a well-trained employee who files emotional reports on time. Her eyes watered, the first crack of real emotion I'd seen in weeks. That's not true. Then tell me, I said gently, when was the last time you actually hugged me because you wanted to, not because it fit into your structure? She didn't answer. Right, I said. That's what I thought. We sat there in silence. Her candle flickered out. I poured more wine, took a sip, and looked straight at her. Here's the funny part, I said. You taught me something after all. She looked up warily. What's that? I smiled. Boundaries. Her breath hitched. So what are you saying? I'm saying I'm done participating. Experiments end when the subject stops playing along. She stared at me, searching for a soft spot to push. "You're walking away?" I nodded. "You said love needs structure. Turns out I need space." "Tom, please don't do this. We can talk, we can—" "No," I said. "We can't." Not without another rule to break, I stood up. The chair made a slow scraping sound across the floor, the kind of sound that stays in your memory forever. I left the folded paper beside her wine glass. As I reached the doorway, she whispered, "You're giving up." I turned slightly. "No," I said. "You gave up the moment you replaced love with evaluation." Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door, didn't yell, just left, quietly, like someone clocking out after a long, unpaid shift. Outside, the air felt cleaner than it had in weeks. It wasn't freedom yet, just oxygen, but it was enough. The next morning, I came back early to grab a few things. She was asleep. The candles had burned down to nothing. On the table were 2 sheets of paper, her 20 rules and my 5, side by side, like evidence. I didn't touch them, I just looked. 20 steps to control someone, 5 steps to walk away. That math finally made sense. She was asleep on the couch, curled up under a blanket, laptop half open beside her. Even in sleep, she looked like she was mid-analysis. For a second, I just stood there, quiet, not angry, not triumphant, just done. It's strange, the moment when love stops being heavy. You expect noise, shouting, closure, tears. But sometimes it just ends in a silent living room, with candle wax hardened in place and yesterday's wine drying in the glasses. I packed my things slowly, a few shirts, my guitar. The mug she said was too chipped to keep. I took it anyway. I didn't want souvenirs. I just didn't want to leave everything looking like an exhibit of my own compliance. Before walking out, I looked at those 2 pages again. Her handwriting was neat, organized, like the list was meant for publication. Mine was scrawled, uneven, a little wine-stained. It looked exactly like our marriage. One side orderly control, the other chaos that finally stopped pretending to fit. I folded both pages together and left them on the counter under a single magnet that read, "Love grows with intention." Felt ironic enough, the first few days alone were disorienting, not because I missed her, but because I didn't know what to do without being observed. I'd catch myself mid-thought thinking, wait, is this compliant? Then I'd laugh, out loud, because there was no one to deduct points for sarcasm relapse. I ate takeout in bed, left dishes in the sink, and didn't journal about it. The freedom was stupidly simple. I could make noise, I could be messy, I could exist without annotations. A week later she texted me, "You could have at least said goodbye properly." We said enough. You think walking away fixes anything? It fixed me. She didn't respond after that. It was the first message chain we ever had that ended cleanly. I went back to work. Mike saw me at the coffee machine and said, "So, you finally graduated the program?" "Yeah," I said. "Dropped out with full honors." He grinned. "You look lighter." "Yeah," I said. Turns out, emotional freedom has no paperwork. We laughed, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel defensive. It just felt human. That weekend, I found myself in a diner, eating pancakes at noon. No deadlines, no check-ins. The waitress smiled and said, "You want another coffee?" "Sure," I said automatically, then froze, halfway expecting to hear Rule 9. But no one corrected me. She just poured the cup and walked away. That's when it hit me. How peaceful life can be when you don't have to pass a test to earn it. A month passed. We got divorced. Sometimes I'd wake up and think of the house. How quiet it must be now. How she's probably sitting at that same table, evaluating herself for once. Maybe she'll realize that control doesn't heal people. It just rearranges the furniture of misery. Or maybe not. Either way, that's not my homework anymore. I still keep a copy of my 5 rules. Not because I miss her, but because they remind me of something I almost forgot. That love is supposed to feel alive, not approved. That closeness can't be scheduled, and that sometimes the only boundary worth keeping is the door you walk out of. She once said, "Speak only when you have something meaningful to say." I think I finally understand that one. So, for the record, no anger, no resentment, just gratitude. For the lesson, for the silence, for the air that finally belongs to me. 20 rules to control me. 5 rules to leave, and 1 truth that stayed. Love doesn't need management. It needs mercy. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.